Hi Ben, hi Rachel, hi Jackson. I had a request to make a short video on where flour for baking comes from, and since I grind my own, I thought I'd show you what this looks like. So I kind of got set up with some things to show you. I'm going to turn the camera around and we're going to start off with what looks like a wheat stalk that would be growing in a field. I have it attached to a project that I made, but you'll get the general idea. So let me switch the camera. Alright, so this is how, oops, I see I lost one. This is how it would look in the field when it is ripe and ready to be harvested. So they would cut all these stalks, and then they're all wrapped in this outer lining, and you read in the Bible about things like threshing floors. That's where they would beat these grains on the floor outside in the wind so that this paper-like material on the very outside, well, will fall off. Let's see, since that one fell, if I can get it. Maybe not. Okay, it's lost forever. But you get the idea. So this is how it comes in the field, and then they have to get it off the wheat stalk to turn it into what is called a wheat berry. And here I have a variety. This is my, I guess, grain pantry. I have several different kinds, and I'm going to show you some of those up close. So the individual kernel that was inside here is called a berry. So we have here like hard white wheat berries, and this is soft wheat, and you can tell there's a little bit of a difference. This looks bigger and fatter, and this is a little more compact. The soft wheat berries are good for making fluffy things like bread and cookies, and the hard wheat has more gluten structure in it, so it's good for making things like bread. And we have barley. You read about that in the Bible. We have rye, a little bit of einkorn left, and some other things. Now kamut, this is interesting. This kind of grain was actually found in an old Egyptian pharaoh's tomb, and one of the archaeologists decided to take some home from the jar that they found in the tomb and plant it to see if it would still grow thousands and thousands of years later, like 7,000, no, not 7, maybe like 5,000 years later, and it grew. So he started planting more so that he could get more grain, and kamut actually means Egypt. So that is an ancient grain. All right, we're gonna go over to my grain mill here. But first I'm gonna show you up close some of the other things here. So I showed you the hard white wheat. You see how that is. And then spelt is another ancient grain that they probably would have used in Bible times. I'm sure Jesus ate some spelt or barley loaves. You see this is a little more round. Then we have rye. Rye's a little darker. And there's that kamut again. It's a nice golden color. The kernels are nice and long. And I even have oat. So you're used to seeing these rolled out flat for oatmeal, but this is how they look before they become your oatmeal. You can actually grind these up and then turn it into flour and bake with it. Isn't that neat? So this is a variety of wheat and grain kernels or berries up close. And here I have some of my hard white wheat berries, and I'm going to grind them in my electric mill. It just sits on my countertop, and inside there are two stones that rest kind of flat against each other, and when I turn the motor on, they're going to put some of the kernels in between the two stones and grind them really, really finely. Now, this used to be done in the local towns. Everyone would harvest their own grain and wheat, and they would thresh it on the threshing floor, like I said, to get that sort of outer paper layer off and expose the berries, and then they would take the berries to their local miller. Do you know anybody with the last name Miller? Because that is where that comes from. They would have been a family who owned a mill, whether it was a grain mill for processing grain like this, or a sawmill or a lumber mill. Lots of different millers in town. And oftentimes they had two gigantic stones, millstones. You can read about that in the Bible. It's mentioned several places, and usually it's talking about not doing things so that you won't have to have a millstone come into play. But they usually had a donkey or a horse that would go in circles to move the top stone in circles around on top of the bottom stone, so that as the two stones, the weight of the two stones together pressed against all these kernels, it would crush it and you would be left with a fine flour. And then usually you would pay your miller by giving them a certain small percentage of the flour that they milled for you. So the process of turning the wheat berries into flour is called milling. So this is going to get loud. I'm going to turn on my machine. So here, if you look down in, you can kind of see, you see the gray, the dark gray looking stone? That is the top stone inside. So as I pour these kernels in there, they are going to filter down in between the two stones and come out as fine flour out of this chute into the bowl. So it's going to be kind of loud, so if you're sensitive, you may want to turn the sound down just a little bit, okay? Here we go. Whoa, look at this. Just a minute ago, oh, they looked like these. And now we have soft, fluffy flour that can be made into cookies, bread, muffins, pancakes, cinnamon rolls, tortillas, just about anything you can think of. And it's so nutritious because this was made from the entire kernel over here, the entire berry, the way God intended it to. And so all kinds of nutrients and vitamins and even a tiny, tiny drop of oil is contained within each seed kernel here. Now you could take one of these outside and plant it in the ground and it would grow up one wheat stalk, or you can grind it in a grinder or a mill like this and create delicious, nutritious, flavorful things out of it. So I hope that helped, and now you know where flour comes from. Well, at least in my home. In a commercial setting, the stuff you buy at the store is ground at a large factory mill closer to the fields, and then they package it all up and send it to the store for you. But in order for it to be able to stay on the shelf long enough, for you to use it and buy it, they have to remove some of the good vitamins, and that's just not as good. So that's why we choose to grind our own flour. So there you go. Instant flour. Isn't that neat? Bye, Ben.